Hi, Paul Slack is Good News Plan. I'm here with Rachel Tenenbaum. Is that right?
Yes, Tenenbaum.
And this Rachel's going to talk about stress and peace. And I'm just looking at her, I feel calmer. I don't know why. Why do you think that is? What is your secret sauce here?
I do the work to get grounded so that I can live and move from a place of peace, to be quite frank. Right. There's so much conflict in the world. There's so much stress in the world, especially in New York. You and I both know, living in New York, it surrounds us every single day. And it's not something that we can sidestep, but we can learn how to manage and work with it in a more effective way. So that is perhaps what you are sensing.
I'm alluding to it, but I'm doing more than alluding. I'm actually interviewing you about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I somewhere I heard that you do this for corporate people. You do this individual. Yeah. And so, what does that mean? You do this? Did you write a book, or did you have lectures, or?
So I have, I do facilitations and I build out programs for organizations that blend both brain-based tools. So I'm a NeuroTransformational Coach is my foundation. I'm a coach, I'm a NeuroTransformational Coach, which just means basically brain-based coach. And with that, I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of clients, whether it's one-on-one or in group settings and teams and organizations, to find a more effective and aligned approach to dealing with difficult situations and stressful situations so that they can move forward more intentionally and effectively.
Now, I think you take, when I saw that somebody had asked us wasabi publicity, which I like wasabi, that's the cousin to nice horseradish. And so they asked, and I saw the word peace, but it said P.E.A.C.E, but it said P period capital right. P capital, however you spell that word.
Capital so, E. I think E comes next in the word peace. A, and then I believe it's C, and then eventually there's another E. So yes, it's an amalgamation of a bunch of different tools that are incredibly effective, and when you layer them on top of one another, become even more effective, right? So I'm happy to walk you through PEACE and what PEACE actually stands for, because it's an acronym. But the first one is pause and breathe, right? So often it's such a small thing, but so often we tend to be very reactive. Somebody says something and we're gonna just in 2 seconds respond. But in that moment that we take a moment to just pause, it creates space between the stimulus and the response. And in that space, even for a mere moment, it gives the opportunity for more brilliant insight and solutions to arise. So I don't know about you, but have you ever gotten a flurry of emails or texts and you respond really quickly to them, and then seconds later you wish you could reach back into your device and retract some of those responses because it was either too reactive, or a little bit later you came up with a more brilliant response?
Oh, by far. Just about 10 minutes ago. No, yes.
Exactly. That was my life all the time in New York. I had a phenomenal job, but I was constantly needing to respond to emails. And 30 minutes later, when I finally came up for air and took a deep breath, I'd say, oh, wait a minute. There was a much better and more effective way of responding. But in the meantime, I already had a response to my response. So then it created an entirely new trail that I could have mitigated had I just taken a moment to take a pause, take a deep breath and say, okay, what do I really want to say in this email? And what's the outcome that I'm actually looking to achieve?
We're big on this word pause. I'm going to throw my 2 cents in at this moment, just because we're big on this word pause. So I've wanted to actually, my mission was to stop the world. Okay. Stop it. And then a smart guy, Maurice Strong, who was Kofi Annan's buddy and Trudeau's buddy up there in Canada, the UN, said, the stop thing, it might be a little too dramatic to me. And he told me, why don't you just, because I also stopped the world, it would stop the world, I want to stay on, as opposed to stop the world, I want to get off, like Anthony Newley's song. And so he said, why don't you just try to pause the world? Just so that's what we're doing. September 21st, 12 noon, the International Day of Peace. We're going to pause the whole wide world. Back to E.
Right. So that's pause. So moving on to E, the first E is embrace, which is embrace what you cannot change. Right. This is a difficult one, but so often we want to be resistant to what is or fight with what is. It's like, a storm is coming. You have a choice. You can embrace the fact that it's going to be a bad storm and you can prepare accordingly, or you can resist the fact or get frustrated by it, go out and fight the storm in some capacity. And that's not going to make the storm pass any quicker. It's not going to impact the storm at all. It's still going to be as intense or as soft as it will be. And in the meantime, you're creating a lot of inner turmoil. So to bring this into reality, I have a client who recently garnered an incredible promotion at a great organization. And with that came a very reactive boss. And that was his actual opportunity. And he could either be resistant to the fact that he has a very reactive boss and that the boss is going to blow at some point, because he does, or he can embrace it and embrace, okay, this is reality. So with that, how do I want to be in this situation? How do I what's going to be the best for me, given that this is the circumstance, right? Embracing also requires that we embrace how we feel in any given moment. So if we get frustrated and we want to push that aside, that's going to ultimately have us blow. So it's just taking that moment to pause and to say, okay, this is reality. This is what's here. And so from here, given the circumstances, now what? And that leads us to A. For acknowledge.
Is this a good time to say the Serenity prayer to yourself?
It would be a great time to say the Serenity prayer to yourself.
Okay. Sometimes you just plain old cannot change things.
Not just enhancing my managerial skills, like managing down, but managing up, right? The greatest leaders know how to manage not just down, but manage up. And when he takes a step back and he acknowledges, okay, what I want for myself is growth, what I want for myself is a seat at the table, that means that I have to respond differently in these situations and scenarios, rather than creating, more turmoil in the organization because I'm being reactive to his reactivity. I'm going to shift the dynamic, right? One person shifts in a system, the entire system has to shift.
This Rachel, she's a smart woman. You're really smarty. You're good. You know what you're doing, and you would be very helpful for a corporate setting and or a mediator for a relationship. I'm an interfaith minister, for whatever that's worth.
That's wonderful.
And the spiritual, whatever, all faiths, no faith, whatever you want. I don't care. Don't bother me. I got my own problems. So I'm happy to be involved with certain things. Of course, I'm just like everybody else. I have my difficulties and have had my misunderstandings and communications, and
we all have.
You're angry, you're blind, and all the things you're saying. But you really have a nice handle on this, and I'm sure you're helping a lot of people in that process. So we were at P.E.A.C. Choose
a new way of engaging, right? So when we acknowledge what we actually want for ourselves, we also acknowledge what gets in the way, our own reactive tendencies, our own habitual natures that can get in the way of what we want. And so when we acknowledge both what we want and what can get in the way, we're empowered to choose a new response, a new way of being in a situation, right? And so with this particular individual, for him, that choice is asking more questions when that boss gets reactive. And sometimes there's a time for that. And other times it's taking a step back and just letting him cool down, right? Rather than allowing himself to get stirred up by it, he's like, okay, that thing's happening over there. There's a storm over there. When that storm calms down, then I'll approach it and then I'll engage, rather than engaging immediately. And that choosing of a new response, a new action, a new way of being with this situation that's happening creates a whole new dynamic. And ultimately it quiets the storm rather than perpetuates it.
So in essence, is that sort of like if you want a situation to change, you change?
Yes. What I often tell my clients is, because oftentimes my clients will come on and they'll, in the very beginning of our engagement together, they'll really want to tell me why the real problem was with somebody else. And if I could just change somebody else. And my response is, I wish I had a magic pill that I could give you, that you could give that person. But unfortunately, I haven't developed that pill yet. So short of that, the only thing that we can do is shift ourselves in the system. Because again, a system works a certain way, right? And the moment that you change something within the system, the entire system has to change. This person can't keep responding the same way to a different reaction. So yes.
These are all good for any relationship of any sorts, any size and shape. You really, this is beautiful, that the thoughts that you have here. All right, the big E.
Engage wholeheartedly and envision and engage wholeheartedly. So the brain doesn't actually know the difference between perceived reality and actual reality, right? It's why movies can be so powerful for so many people, and it can feel like you're there. In the movie of our minds, we actually often use this to our detriment, right? How many times have you thought about a situation that you don't want to unfold, and you're planning your response and how you're going to, hit them with a comment?
Sorry. Yeah, right. Yes, you're on. Right.
Right. We're envisioning that. But in that process, because the brain is a prediction machine and it likes to predict, it's predicting something. And so when reality happens, you are waiting for your prediction to be true and ready to pounce with your response, but it's not in alignment with the bigger picture of what you want. And so when we use this to our benefit, when we envision, okay, what is it that we want? We've already asked ourselves, we've decided how we want to show up. We can envision this scenario unfolding, see the trigger, and then seeing ourselves taking a moment to pause, to embrace the facts, and then rewiring our brain to choose a different response to that same stimulus. And every single time that we go through that in our heads, and every single time that we practice it and we visualize it, the old habitual way, but then choosing that new response and that new engagement.
They even say that, so I did work on the brain series for 2 years. They did say at the PBS, they did say just recently, just this week, you could actually, where was it? 60 Minutes or Sunday morning? I don't know, one of those good shows that has some real intellect to them. You could change your genes.
Yes.
You could change your genes through repetition of similarly to what you're saying. You could change your gene makeup. That they were saying now.
So there's something called psychoneural immunology. That's part of that. There's a lot of research that's being done, both in terms of the environment and the thoughts that we have. Before, it sounded very out there to say that our thoughts were influencing, but our thoughts have a very strong impact on our cells and ultimately on our DNA, both in terms of how we create stress, which shortens our telomeres. I mean, this is a topic that we could talk about another time because I can go off the deep end speaking about this. But the crux of it is what you were saying, is that we can alter our DNA and our genes.
I like to go with the one, you are what you think.
Yes.
And try to stick with that. And, you're gonna, well, and everything that goes along with that. Think good, you're good. Hang out with good, you're good. It's all good. It's all good peace stuff. Well, you're really super duper. We'll talk again, further kinds of things, because you're a smart one. And I was happy that we got this moment. The two things, let me first ask you, so how does someone reach you?
Absolutely. So they can reach me via my website at iamliving.us. That's www.iamliving.us. And there are different ways of contacting, of looking at some of the work that we do and that we offer to collaborate. I'm also on LinkedIn, Rachel Tenenbaum, on LinkedIn, and on Instagram at I Am Living Coaching. So different portals to connect. And I'm also on Insight Timer. So I guide meditations on Insight Timer and events on Insight Timer.
All right. Beautiful.
Big meditation platform.
Oh, we like meditation. I'm a yogi. All right.
Yeah.
Good. So my last then question is for Rachel Tenenbaum. What is peace for you?
Peace for me is a state of being. It's a priority, because the more peace that I create within myself, the more intentional I can be within my relationships and my responses, and not get caught up in habitual dynamics that don't actually move me in the direction of what I want for myself and for my life. And so for me, peace is a segue to more of what I want to be creating, to more of the impact that I want to be having, and to greater, more intentional relationships for myself and those around me.
Wow, fantastic. All right, Dan, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And I wish, we're going to talk again. Okay?
Look forward to it, Paul. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rachel. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.